Kamala and Biden are at odds, and this dock worker strike may be the end of Kamala's campaign. You have got to check this out.
Everyone's pockets with what's going on. A dock workers walkout could batter the American economy and tie up U.S. trade. Wall Street Journal story, represented by the International Longshoremen's Association, ILA, are preparing to strike across ports from Maine to Texas, threatening to disrupt U.S. trade and the economy. J.P. Morgan analysts estimate the strike could cost the economy $3.8 billion to $4.5 billion a day. Jeez. The White House has urged negotiations but believes the supply chain could withstand a short strike. The ILA, led by Harold Daggett, demands a 77% wage increase over 6 years, rejecting an offer of nearly 40%. Daggett argues workers deserve a share of shipping companies' pandemic and recent profits. A strike would halt most container movements, but not affect military cargoes, cruise services, and oil and gas export. Retailers and manufacturers from Walmart to GM warned the strike could drive inflation, especially during the holiday season. Vivek, thoughts on this story?
My first thought is this is not good for Kamala Harris. I mean, this is just not good for her on the eve of the election. I'm not saying that because I'm obviously voting for Trump. I'm not voting for her. And I'm actually somebody who urges against complacency for our own side. So if something's bad for our side, I'm going to call it out. This is not good news for Kamala Harris on the eve of an election. I think what we're going to start to see is we're going to see some weird things happen in the next month. I can't tell you what, and with an exact prediction of what those are going to be, but one possibility, the least weird of the weird things I think we're going to see, is her rapidly distancing herself from and even possibly criticizing Joe Biden. So I think you're going to see a lot of this in the next month, is the Democratic Party further making Biden the fall man for all of these policies, and even leaks or other stories coming out. They might be made up, right? They probably will be made up, but made up nonetheless, that Kamala was the person who was trying to push Joe in this direction, but he didn't go on economic policy or border policy. I think we're going to have to see, it's almost inevitable that we're going to see some of that in the next month, because otherwise she is so saddled correctly with the Biden-Harris policies that are giving us everything from the largest strikes we've seen to the largest influx of mass immigration we've seen to the largest crime wave we've seen. She is going to have to take the next level of steps to separate herself from these policies. I don't think it's going to necessarily be successful. I don't think most people are going to fall for it, but I think we're going to see more of that when I see stories like this.
I mean, Tim Walz said it himself. We cannot take 4 more years of this administration. We need a change. So if Kamala tries playing the card that she had nothing to do with it really, it's all Joe Biden's fault, no one's going to believe it, because nobody believes Joe Biden's the one actually in charge, just as nobody believes that Kamala would be the one if she ever got into office, because they're just cogs in a machine. It's the bureaucrats in the dark coats in the shadows who actually run this government. Vladimir Putin said it himself. He said, I've talked to 4 different presidents and everybody comes in with these grand ideas, but in the end they can't follow through on their vision because they're almost kneecapped.
Massive, union work organization, and if you think of it that way. And she just went toe-to-toe in the back room with the Teamsters and couldn't get them to do it. They pulled their own people. It was like 58-35 in favor of Trump. And so the union, Teamsters, comes out and says, you know what? No formal endorsement this go around. And by the way, we encourage all of our people to vote your conscience, vote the way you would. Boom, step back. Now you've got this. These are the major strikes where the White House usually has to step in with leadership and to enforce like a federal negotiator or somebody to come in to mediate. And that she is cornered on this. This is going to create, pandemic type interruptions in supply chain is what's going to happen here, number one. And if we don't think that in very short order, a shortage of certain things is going to lead to, inflation of those things, then you weren't paying attention to what was happening to certain food products at Walmart and Sam's Club and and Target. Even in the earliest days of the pandemic, as soon as you interrupt the supply chain, the price goes up. And she's cornered because how does she stay in this middle? Like last week, she suddenly became Trump on the border, spending 20 minutes at the border, 26 minutes, I got to give her full credit, 26 minutes at the border, and then making statements that were almost completing her run to the middle to be as much like Trump as possible. She's stuck here. She's absolutely stuck. If she comes out and supports the union side, that's not the moderate position. She's in, and we've got an economic impact.
Well, I just have a question for Vivek, because we've seen, you said that Comrade Kamala.
Stay on this topic.
I am.
On the port topic.
I am.
Adam, I'm going to tell you on the port topic.
I'm with you, Pat.
Okay, let's see here, because I know you're going to digress here in a second.
No, I'm saying. But we're starting to see like UAW. Sean O'Brien came out. He spoke at the Republican convention, I believe, right around the time that you were there.
He gave probably the longest speech there.
Impassioned speech there.
Yeah.
Thick Boston accent. We're not going for it. And then we've seen Sean Fain, sort of a counterpart with the UAW. These strikes that are taking place. We saw Hollywood taking place. What's going on with this specific strike right here? And why, Tom touched on it, why are these unions that are typically so entrenched in the Democratic Party all of a sudden being like, yeah, I don't know about this time over here.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So there's a psychological component to this that runs deeper. I don't think that there's a lot of people who are truly upset about saying, I'm not getting paid enough and prices are going up. People are bothered by it. They suffer. But what really gets people to move is to say that it's not just that I'm not making enough money, but prices have gone up. It's that I'm not making enough money, but prices have gone up and nobody else seems to give a damn. It's the second part that actually matters a lot, right? And so I think that that's something, I saw that when I went to Springfield, by the way. When you showed up, even the community, the thing that they're frustrated by is not that they're struggling, they are, but it's the struggling and nobody else seems to care. And I think that this is something that Donald Trump and the Republican Party under Donald Trump has done really well, is to communicate, yeah, we've got the policies, but Kamala Harris can claim to stand for the same policies. That's the thing about policy shifts, is you can say anything. But who actually really seems to care and have that as a core motivation? They can feel that. You can smell that. You can kind of feel it in your bones.
If we knew deep in our hearts the government was actually working to solve this problem, they were working on policies and strategies to lower inflation and to keep more money in your pocket. But we know they're not. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We know it's not an easy undertaking to reel in inflation, but it's like they're not even trying. They don't view it as a problem. Instead of rectifying our spending and turning this ship around, we are just going full speed ahead down the inflation rabbit hole, and it's only going to get worse with these people. We need somebody with actual plans on how to solve this, and Trump is the man for the job. In fact, he wants to hire Elon Musk to create a Doge committee, Department of Government Efficiency. And with those two guys at the helm, our country will be in fantastic shape. But we have to expel these people out of Washington, D.C. right now, because the biggest cause of inflation is government overspending.
Members are saying, okay, these policies are going to be better than Trump's policies because a lot of Kamala's policies are now looking like Trump's policies anyway, at least at the last minute. She's trying to make them seem that way. But I think it's that deeper psychology of who do I actually think gives a damn about me? That's what gets people riled up. Is not that I'm struggling, but I'm struggling that nobody else actually seems to care. That's the real problem.
So the emotional component.
If you're asking like this event or all of them, period.
Yeah.
This one is specific to this, or
this one is
a symptom.
Yeah, this is a symptom.
Because
of an
stay on this.
problem.
This is not a regular thing, by the way. Just so you know this, like the stuff that this is affecting. This is 45,000 employees.
Yep.
This is 36 ports. This is a quarter of all bananas. Like if you want to talk about products, this is Hochul. Governor Hochul came out and said, if you're buying a car, make sure the car is going to be delivered, type of thing. This is people asking if gifts are going to get in by Christmas, toys. If you ordered in advance, that's the concerns that people are coming up with. This is these guys asking for a raise of 77%, while the average salary on West Coast for the same work is $116,000. They're making $81,000 a year. That's a $35,000 raise that would give them 43%, but they're asking for 77% over 6 years. This is a legit thing. And by the way, the question you asked, which was actually a very good question, I thought you were going to digress and go and talk about something else when we're on this topic, is unions. Mm-hmm. How are unions historically? You think about, Jimmy Hoffa, you think about all these guys. Do you know, even Pete Buttigieg was trying to get them to agree to do what's that one thing called the Taft-Hartley Act, or the Taft, which, if you can pull up the Taft, are you familiar with the Taft?
For acting?
The Taft-Hartley Act is where the government can force unions to not bully employers and threaten them to say, if you don't come back to work, you may lose this, you may lose that, you may lose this. And they came up with this many years ago because unions with Ford, there was so much of that happened in the 20s and 30s. that they came up with this, and Kamala Harris and Biden were like, we want to have nothing to do with this, because if they come out and do this the next 40 days, the impact of this could be in a big way. But why don't we do this, Tom or Vivek? Vivek, I'll go to you first. The average person, okay? Not even how this affects Kamala. How could this affect the average person? You're married, you got 2 kids, you're trying to do your thing, pay your bills, you're doing your thing. How can this affect them?
Price spikes and supply shortages. That's how that could affect them. I mean, if things aren't able to, goods and services that show up at your grocery store or show up at Walmart or Target don't end up showing up on that grocery store. If we ever get to the point of that type of supply shortage actually affecting an everyday family, I think the election is basically done, no matter what tricks they pull. That's what I believe. Now, whether that happens in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll see. These negotiations can go in any given direction.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though, is this is not a super interesting topic to a lot of people, but I also think the United States needs to take a long, hard look at the Jones Act, take a long, hard look at a lot of these regulatory statutes that were passed with good intentions, but that are also contributing to these types of difficulties, right? So that's an act that was designed to protect American shippers, ship companies, and shipbuilders, but actually gets in the way of efficient, low-cost shipping into the United States of America. So I think that there's 2 competing views. And this is where, by the way, I think this is even a divide on the right. This is not just between Republicans and Democrats. This is a divide on the American right, where when we're successful in taking over the levers of power, the question is, do we want to use that regulatory state and expand it to advance pro-conservative or so-called pro-American goals? Or do we actually want to dismantle a lot of that regulatory state in the first place? That, I think, is the future divide, even in the direction of America First. And I'll tell you this is, it's not a divide even between neoliberals, neocons, and America First. That's a divide within the America First right.
Yeah.
I come down on the camp of get in there and shut it down. And a lot of those statutes, I think, are actually impeding the interests of American workers and manufacturers in the name of helping them. So anyway, that's a longer discussion we could have, but that's where I land on it.
The thing about human nature is that the majority of people, they never really learn a lesson until it applies to them themselves. You could be playing on your phone while driving, mess around, and almost crash. 2 weeks from now, that same person's going to be on their phone. So when it applies to who you're going to actually vote for come this November, if they can go to the supermarkets, the ShopRites, the Stop and Shops, the Costco's, and they actually see empty shelves, the prices are getting higher, they're going to say to themselves, oh my gosh, these conspiracies from the right about supply shortages and inflation were dead on. To anyone out there voting for Kamala, my only question to you is, are you abundantly wealthy? How on earth can you afford these prices at the grocery store? I remember when Trump was in office, I was paying $1, $2 for eggs. Now I'm paying $7, $8. It's absolutely insane. And it's not just eggs, it's gas, it's milk, it's everything that you need on a day-to-day basis. The cost of living is going up dramatically, and the wages that 99% of Americans are getting are not keeping up with inflation. If we get 4 more years of this, the middle class will be extinct. What we're going to have in society are have-nots and have-yachts. You'll have Nancy Pelosi sitting on $100 million, and then everybody else working tooth and nail just to have food on the table for their kids. I can't believe that people are actually voting for this woman. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think that this strike will resolve before Election Day? Will people start noticing these shortages at the grocery stores? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear that. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.